Hello, everybody. Welcome back to American Textbook Reading. Today we're looking at Science Book 4, Lesson 8, Rocks and Minerals. Rocks and minerals. You know, my dad is a geologist. I think he should teach this lesson, but he's not here, so let's continue. Okay, anyway, in this lesson, you will discover different types of rocks and minerals, and also how glass is made. Okay, so let's begin. Okay, in our vocabulary list, the first word is boulder. Boulder. When you say this word, you feel like something big and round, right? Boulder. A boulder, of course, is a large, rounded rock made by weathering. What is weathering? Well, of course, weather, it comes from the word weather. Weather is like rain. If it's sunny, that's a certain type of weather. If it's rainy, that's another type of weather. But of course, we talked about this in an earlier unit. Over a long time, rain, wind, snow, freezing, melting can have an effect on rocks, and it can make new rocks. And boulders, of course, big pieces of rock that are carved really by the wind and sometimes by the motion of landslides and things like that, rocks will break up and they will become smooth because they'll wear away and they're round. And we call these large rocks boulders. This is a really large rock, isn't it? That's a person standing next to it right there. So imagine how big that rock is. So of course, boulders can be bigger than many houses put together. Of course, boulders can also be smaller, but they have to be a certain size. I mean, if you have a rock like this, that's not a boulder. But if you have something that's pretty big, it's heavy to pick up, you could call that a boulder, okay? But a small rock, no, that's not a boulder. It's a large rock. Okay. Next, we have limestone. Now, limestone is a gray colored rock used in buildings. It's a very hard type of rock. Of course, there's many types of rocks. Some rocks are harder than other rocks. Some rocks are very soft and will crumble easily. But limestone is very tough, and people will use it to make buildings because it's tough and it doesn't crumble or break apart easily. So that's limestone. Next, we have marble. Now, marble is also a very strong type of rock, but it can also be a very beautiful type of rock. It's a hard rock that is shiny when cut and polished. So usually people will cut like sheets of marble. If they find marble, of course, it's just rock underground, or sometimes it's exposed because of the weather. But when people will find that, they will make, it's kind of like a mine, but they call it a quarry. And what they do is they will go in, they will cut like pieces of rock, and you can cut like square or rectangular slabs of marble, and then you can use that in your building. A lot of people like to have marble countertops in their kitchen. And of course, there are many different types, many different colors, designs, and when you polish them, they look very beautiful. Of course, they're very strong and resistant, so when somebody's in the kitchen and cutting and cooking and banging pots and pans, it doesn't hurt the marble. So many people like to use marble in their kitchen on top of their countertops. Okay. Next, we have mineral. There are many minerals, and minerals are found in rocks. They are useful substances. Minerals are useful substances. If it's useful, it's a type of mineral that is formed naturally in the ground, just like rocks. Okay, so minerals are different types of useful substances found in the ground. What kinds of minerals are there? Well, we'll find out more in the lesson, but there are many different types. Graphite. Graphite is a type of mineral. Now, what do we use graphite for? Well, first of all, it's soft, it's black, and it's not a hard rock. If you put some pressure on it, little pieces of it will break off. And in fact, it's very useful when you think about it, because if you have a piece of graphite, you can put wind Well, you can put wind. You can put wood around it so you hold it and the graphite doesn't mark your fingers. But if the little piece of graphite is sticking out at the end, that of course is a pencil and you can write with it. So when you write with a pencil, you're actually rubbing part of the graphite, that mineral, onto the paper and it stays onto the paper. Right? So it's a very useful mineral, obviously, for writing notes or to write messages to other people. And of course, we use those in pencils. And also, what you call, what do they say? Click pen, or we call it a mechanical pencil. I forgot what many people sometimes call it, but it's a mechanical pencil when you have just a little thin piece of graphite and you put it into it's like a machine, a pencil, and then you just click the button and it pushes the pencil or the graphite out as you write. Okay, so that would be a mechanical pencil as well. Next we have quartz. Now quartz is another type of mineral, and it's a hard mineral that is white or colorless. It's actually kind of nice looking. Many people will use quartz to decorate things, but we also use quartz to do something else, and we'll talk about that in the reading passage. Okay, so that's quartz. And quartz is a very interesting rock, right? It forms these crystals. Now, many minerals will form what we call crystals, right? And it's the chemical, it's the way the molecular structure, now I'm getting too deep here, but the molecular structure of the mineral will form itself in a certain way to make a crystal. And that's what we have here. We have quartz crystals in this rock. Okay. Concrete. Concrete is a hard building material made using limestone. So actually the Romans were very famous for using and developing this technology. They would make concrete. They even had concrete that they could make underwater to build many of the amazing buildings that the Roman Empire built, both in their city of Rome, but also in the aqueducts and many other cities in their empire. They used concrete to build their buildings, the hard building material, and they could shape it. The nice thing about concrete is that you can shape it into the shape that you want. It's wet at first, and you pour it. It's like a liquid, but a very heavy liquid. You pour it into a shape, and then it gets hard, and then you can use that for bricks or columns or really anything to make your building with. So it's a very useful building material. Next we have carve. Carve means to make something by cutting into it. And usually people will cut into wood or stone. Of course, if you cut into wood, you just need a sharp knife, and be careful, obviously, if you're going to carve a figure. Some people like to carve little animals or little people out of pieces of wood. You could also carve a walking stick. You can make interesting designs with a knife on a piece of wood. But if you cut stone, you can't use a knife, right? You have to use a hammer and a chisel, because a knife is not sharp enough to cut rock, but a hammer and a chisel has enough force to very gently carve away the stone. And you look, this person is a very good artist. They're very skilled because they know how to use the hammer and chisel to make very beautiful and detailed carvings. Okay, next. Statue. Of course, a statue is a carving made out of rock, usually marble, but you can also make them out of stone, other types of stone, or metal even. Well, metal is easier because you can heat metal, so it's a liquid, and just pour it into a form, and then you don't really have to carve it. But anyway, an object made in solid material such as a stone or metal. And of course, this is probably a very famous statue. Looks like Greek or Roman era statue. Many Greeks and Romans made statues like this of the famous people or people who are in legends or myths. They made statues of them to remind them, and it's a part of their culture. It's also a very important art form. So, a statue. And we can see many statues today as well of famous people. Okay, so those are our words for the lesson. Now, one of the main ideas of this lesson, of course, is that there are many different types of rocks and there are many different types of minerals. So what are the different types of rocks we looked at? We looked at boulders, we looked at limestone, and we looked at marble. These are all different types of rocks. They aren't minerals, they are rocks, okay? And usually these rocks are formed over a very long time by pressures in the environment. Boulders are formed by wind, rain, movement of the earth. Limestone is formed, and marble also, is formed by many layers of mud and silt and things being pressed very hard by other material on top of it for a very long time and becoming a very strong substance. And marble, of course, is very interesting too, in these rocks that we can cut them into shapes and use them in our buildings. Now, those are rocks. Different types of minerals. Minerals, we have quartz, copper, and graphite. So we can see, oh, copper. Copper is a metal, sure, but it's also a type of mineral. So many precious metals like copper, gold, silver are types of minerals. And so quartz, copper, graphite, these are different types of minerals. Another idea in this unit is how glass is made. Because you think about glass, is glass a rock? Is it a mineral? Well, actually, glass is made. Now, glass can be made naturally, but if it's made by humans, humans can make glass in a lot of different varieties, shapes, and even colors. And of course, humans have perfected the technique or technology of making glass, so we can see glass all around us, and we use glass in a lot of the objects that we use every day. So how is it made? Well, first of all, sand is the basic ingredient, and sand is made of tiny pieces of rock. So again, boulders are big pieces of rock made by wind and rain, but over time, that boulder, the wind and the rain and the elements will constantly wear away the boulder, and little pieces of that boulder will be blown away in the wind, and that's sand, right? And a lot of sand is on the beach also, because sand is also produced by fish eating coral, right? That's another way that sand is made. So sand is made of tiny pieces of rock, and at high temperature, when there's a very high temperature, sand and other ingredients are mixed together in a very high temperature, and when the material cools, it becomes glass. Now, it's very interesting that some places where there's a lot of storms and a lot of lightning, people will actually put metal poles in the beach. Why do they do that? Because they want to attract lightning. Lightning will hit the metal pole, and of course it'll make it very hot, the whole metal pole, and the metal pole that's in the sand will create natural glass. And sometimes if lightning hits the beach or in sandy area, because it's so hot, it will turn that sand into glass. Now, it won't be the clear glass in your car or in your house. It'll be, it won't be perfect glass, but that's how people first discovered glass, and they perfected it to make very useful glass that we can see through, or tinted glass or colored glass for churches to make very beautiful windows. So basically that's how they made glass. So they first observed it in nature, and then they figured out how they could develop those materials and perfect the technique to make all sorts of different glass. And you can see, lots of different designs, and you can shape glass into many different shapes. We can make cups out of it. We can make windshields for our cars out of it. We can make windows for our house out of it. So glass is a very useful material. Oh, and by the way, one more thing about glass. I'm sorry I'm going too long, but do you know glass, when they make it, it's not set. Over time, glass is a solid substance, but it's a little bit liquid too, because over a long time, hundreds of years, if you have a piece of glass in a house, a very old house, look at that glass. At the top of the glass, it will be thinner. At the bottom, it will be thicker, because slowly, over time, that glass is flowing down because of gravity. So it's not a liquid, right? But it's a solid, but it's kind of in between. It's obviously not a liquid, but over time, the glass will flow down, and the material of the glass will flow down like a liquid and become thicker at the bottom and thinner at the top. That's just an interesting fact about glass. Interesting, huh? Okay, anyway. Let's take a look at the reading passage. And as usual, as I read it, read along with me or read along in your mind and focus on the words from the vocabulary. You guys ready? Let's begin. Rocks are everywhere on earth. Rocks can be many shapes and sizes. Boulders are large rocks. Boulders can be larger than a house. We use rocks in many ways. Limestone is a rock. Limestone is used to make concrete. Concrete is used to build houses and roads. Marble is a beautiful rock. Marble can be carved. Statues are carved from marble. Rocks are made up of minerals. Minerals are non-living solids. There are many types of minerals and they have many uses. Quartz, copper, and graphite are minerals. Quartz is found in many rocks and sand. Quartz is used with minerals from limestone to make glass. Copper is used to make pots. Quartz and copper are hard minerals. Graphite is used to make pencils. Graphite in a pencil is the black part we use to write. Graphite is a soft mineral. Okay, let's take a look at the reading passage and see how the information is organized. A very common organizational method is to have the main ideas and then details to support that main idea. What is the main idea of this reading passage? The main idea is rocks and minerals have many uses. Okay, that's a true statement. So now let's support it with evidence, with examples and details. So what's the first thing that we use to support that idea that rocks and minerals have many uses? First of all, we have a blank. Beep is used to make concrete. So what type of rock or mineral is used to make concrete? If you remember from the reading passage, that rock is limestone. 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 Limestone is used to make concrete. Minerals in it are also used with another substance to make glass. In this case, we're mixing it with a mineral. Which mineral do we use with the minerals in limestone? We combine those to make what? To make glass. It's quartz. Right? So limestone, of course, I said the reading passage talked about sand, or one of the main ideas talked about sand, but of course sand is probably little pieces of limestone and quartz that are on the beach, right? That's the sand. And if you look at the sand, you might find little pieces of quartz and other minerals that may have come from limestone. And that if under high pressure or high temperature, sorry, not high pressure, high temperature, that is used to make glass. Okay. Next, we saw another example of a rock. What is a beautiful rock? Now, the reading passage said that the beautiful rock is used to make statues, right? But I also mentioned it when we were going over the vocabulary that many people have it in their homes on their kitchen countertops. And of course, that is marble. It's a very beautiful rock. Now, there's many different colors. It's amazing, really, how many different colors you can get marble in. From black to white to pink to blue, marble comes in many different colors and also many different patterns. So marble is a beautiful rock. It can be what? It can be, when we shape wood or rock, what are we doing? We're carving it. So it can be carved. And we need to put ed because it can be carved to make statues. Our last example, we were talking about a soft mineral, and we were using it as the example in a pencil, right, that you can write with it. It is used to make pencils. What mineral is it? It's a soft mineral. We were talking about graphite. Graphite is a black, soft mineral that is on the inside of pencils. Whether it's a wooden pencil or a mechanical pencil, it is the substance that you use to write with. And basically, you're putting pressure on it, you're rubbing it onto the paper, and the mineral is transferring to the paper, and it stays on the paper. So even though it's soft, it's not too soft. It's just the right softness that you can write on a piece of paper, and it doesn't fall off the paper. Okay, so as we can see, there are many different rocks and minerals, and throughout thousands of years, throughout our history, we have observed nature. We have looked at these different rocks and minerals, and we've made, and the human mind is very creative. We have devised or invented ways to use these materials to change their properties using heat or pressure to make other substances like concrete to help us build things, build our buildings, to put windows in our house so we can see outside. So it's not depressing when we're sitting inside our house. We can see outside. We can let the air in. We just move it aside. But we can also see, we can let the light in. So there's many different rocks and minerals that we use for many different purposes. Of course, copper was one of the examples. We use copper all the time. Copper is very good for conducting electricity. So there's a lot of copper in your house. There's copper in your cell phone. There's gold in your cell phone as well. So a lot of different minerals and rocks that we use in everyday life to make our lives easier. So take a look around your home. Take a look around your neighborhood. What different rocks and minerals were used to make your life more convenient? It's very interesting. It's a very interesting subject to look into and to learn more about. And who knows, maybe one day you might become a geologist. Okay, so that would be an interesting career. Anyway, thanks for studying with me, as always, and I hope to see you in the next video lesson. Take care, everybody. Bye-bye.